الحمد لله الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور انفسنا ومن سيئات اعمالنا واشهد ان لا اله الا الله وحده لا شريك له واشهد ان سيدنا محمدا عبده ورسوله. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى اله وصحبه. Now, this talk is a continuation of the previous one. It's actually probably going to be four talks. I gave the first one last week. This is the second one. Just as a reminder, what was the first one on? And I said it's both posted in the website, successineternity.com. It's posted there. When we discussed one, the most important of knowledge of the Quran. The most important sources of knowledge about Islam and the importance of him, we said the Quran, the Hadith, and the opinion of scholars. The second one, we said the doctrine that led to the corruption of the previous religions and how Islam refuted both of them. Because the previous religion, the reason for corruption of the previous religion, one, that God should be feared. Because God is feared, then people have to create something between them and God. The second one, it's prohibited for ordinary people to read the revelation. And therefore, both the religious scholar, rabbis, and the priest as ahead of everybody, because nobody can verify what they say. They can invent for their own benefits things for basically for money. And they said, oh, this is from Allah, and they believe it. And people believe it and follow it. But in Islam came to refute both of them. He said, no one can come between you and Allah. And and he said, even the Prophet does not come between you and Allah. And then the second one, you are responsible for the revelation. You should read it, understand it yourself. It's your responsibility. It's not a responsibility of somebody else to tell you what it is, you know. And then Allah subhanahu also, then we talked about the approach outlines in the Quran to deepen our knowledge about understanding Allah. And I raise this issue because the trouble with it, conflict and division among Muslims happened because of this. For some reason, they ignored the tools that Allah provided to us in the Quran to know Him and focus in studying the essence and the physical attributes of Allah. And this is the trouble. Therefore, they come and say, oh, you'd say Allah doesn't have a hand, you are a kafir. If somebody say you are, no, you say Allah has a hand, it means you are doing a body for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you are a kafir, and this is what. That's why I said the study of the books of what we call it aqidah. It focus on this sifatul Allah, you know, the essence of Allah, rather than focusing in the attributes of Allah. Like when talk Allah al-Kareem, Allah al-Rahim, these are attributes that you can imitate, part of it, you know. But Allah subhanahu, there's nothing you would say about Allah subhanahu from his physical body or his essence, his creation. You will never find it. Whatever you say is wrong. So Allah tell us names. There are things that we, in a language, we can understand. And this is what you call it al-mutashabih. It is something has this ambiguity in it. Leave it. Because you don't understand. First of all, it does not change your action. Somebody was asking me actually, he said, okay, what's Taha? Like Surah Taha. I said, look, I do not, when I read the Quran, there are certain things, I only look for things that I can apply. I can benefit from. If I know what is, if Taha is the name of Prophet Muhammad, if I know that Taha is word letters, that the Quran is formed from, if I know that Taha, if I search the Quran, find how many Taha in Surah Taha, or how many He in Surah Taha, I said, what action I'm going to do with it? So why wasting my time in trying to search for something? The Prophet didn't explain it. Allah didn't explain it. And Allah give me enough information in the Quran to act upon it. So let me read what I can understand that can drive my action or my behavior or my morals. That's what the important part. Yes, even when you read the stories in the Quran, you want to drive a lesson from it. So you don't be like them. It's not an entertainment issues. But there is a lot of ayat that really is actually, you have to do something with it. And then you have to know what you should do with the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we also talked about, that everyone, you cannot follow anybody. If you follow anybody's opinion blindly, you are a mushrik. It's a shirk. I don't say a mushrik, but you have an element of shirk in it. That means you are responsible for your action. And we ended, I said, it will be foolish for you to follow anybody blindly and relegate your mind to anybody, because this person might be in trouble himself in the day of judgment. And so you are going to be standing in front of Allah alone. He cannot help you, He cannot defend you. So you better do whatever, follow, understand, and act about what you know so you can defend yourself in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So now we continue now. The other one, the Quran is very comprehensive book. You know, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala we say, وَنَزَّلْنَا عَلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ تِبْيَانًا لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ, that we have sent down to you this book explaining all things that's important to you, important to us. Look, we just finished Surah Al-Hujurat. Look at how many moral characters and behavior in just a very short surah. You know, so there is many things. When I took the kids in the morning, I said, what make you succeed in this life and the hereafter? It's very few commands. I mean, how complicated it is to know it. And so many other things here. And I talked about so many, this subject in other talks. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, so the Quran is very comprehensive. The hadith of the Prophet, just to give you a compliment to the Quran, reinforces certain issues from the Quran. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala explain all things, tibyan, and the guide and mercy, hudan wa rahma wa bishra al-muslimin. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also in another verse of Surah Al-An'am say, أَفَغَيْرَ اللَّهِ أَبْتَغِي حَكَمًا وَهُوَ الَّذِي أَنزَلَ إِلَيْكَ الْكِتَابَ مُفَصَّلًا. Then shall I seek a judge other than Allah, a ruling other than the ruling of Allah, when He has sent the book, has all of the detailed explanation that you need. And then Allah, في Surah Al-Jasiyah, He said, تِلْكَ آيَاتُ اللَّهِ نَتْلُوهَا إِلَيْكَ. These are the verses of Allah that we recite for you. نَتْلُوهَا عَلَيْكَ بِالْحَقِّ, in truth. Then He come and say, فَبِأَيِّ حَدِيثٍ بَعْدَ اللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ يُؤْمِنُونَ. What other speech, what other statement or discourse after Allah and His ayat, His verses, do they believe in? So at least this will be the first. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what other things you want to believe in other than these? So then you come, and this is something always people have this. They said, oh, why don't you tadabbur Quran? He said, well, I make a mistake. I said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first of all, made a criteria for you that you will not make a mistake in understanding the Quran. And if you made a mistake, He's going to forgive you for it. But He is going to assure you that you are even going to not mistake for one reason. Because if somebody said, oh, what university did you graduate from to talk about religion? Did you graduate from Medina School or University? Did you graduate from Al-Azhar? I said, I graduated from a school, university better than them. Or at least I'm trying, I'm still studying in the school. I want to graduate from the school of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Allah says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَيُعَلِّمُكُمُ اللَّهُ. Have taqwa of Allah, and then Allah will teach you. So when you go to university, what do you want? You want a teacher to teach you. If Allah says, I will teach you, but your responsibility is to have the taqwa. If you have the taqwa, I'll teach you. Then what should I focus on? I focus on the learning, or I focus on the taqwa? I should focus on the taqwa, because Allah will guide me. As I read, I'm going to understand. Allah said, and Allah added, Wallahu bi kulli shay'in alim. Allah knows everything. All things Allah knows. So there is no information that you seek. Allah cannot teach it to you, but with one condition, you should have the taqwa. And then Allah, to make people at least remove from them this, Allah, في Surah Al-Baqarah at the end, He said, رَبَّنَا لَا تُؤَخِذْنَا إِن نَسِينَا أَوْ أَخْطَأْنَا. It's a dua to Allah, Allah, don't hold us accountable if we forget and make mistakes. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I did. respond to this dua. So in this regard, what do you have more than this? So what is should be our focus in is in the taqwa. So and we talk that then the definition is you have to ask, well, what's a taqwa? Then we talk about it there. Now tadabbur al-Quran, because the taqwa, you understand the taqwa, you have to do tadabbur of the Quran. How it is the tadabbur of the Quran is not recitation of the Quran. It's not just reading the Quran. It is a concentration in your reading to understand what it is and the meaning behind what you are reading. Therefore, there is no way you can read with tadabbur when you want to read, a juz or something so quickly in the morning. No, you barely can read a page, and sit down and everyone and said, what does Allah wants to tell me from this? That's what the tadabbur is. But there is a three, through forms of tadabbur. One is a spiritual tadabbur. The second one is intellectual tadabbur. The other one is linguistic tadabbur. We, as most of us, do not speak Arabic and do not understand Arabic properly. We probably cannot engage in this linguistic tadabbur. But we can easily implement the spiritual tadabbur and the intellectual tadabbur. The linguistic tadabbur becoming important probably early enough, because the Quran came to the Arabs who were perfect in the language and challenged them with the language. So that's when that's what will challenge to them. And people, when they come today and reanalyze the words linguistically and so on, they do it because it's something which was people in the past that was so important to them. For us now who do not understand Arabic, it becomes irrelevant, frankly. We cannot understand it, so you cannot tell me why Allah put this word ahead of this unless it has a meaning I can, really apply it because of that special meaning. So, but this is, you find out most of the people from the universities and Islamic universities actually focus probably in that linguistic, tadabbur to address things. The other point when it comes to linguistic things, if anybody come to you and tell you, oh look, there is a Quran, no, there is something wrong in the Quran linguistically, tell him you're so stupid, ignorant. Don't talk to me. First of all of the rules of the Arabic language was written after the Quran was revealed and was developed around the Quran. So it wasn't, you cannot use a rule, human people develop it based on the structure of the Quran to tell me the Quran is wrong. Directly the rule, you either don't understand the rule, or the rule is wrong, or the rule does not comprehend, it cannot include everything. So don't listen to anybody who come and argue these points, because one, you probably don't know how to answer it, neither I. But in the meantime, it's really useless. Is the basis is wrong anyway. So how we do the spiritual tadabbur? Spiritual tadabbur is actually very easy. It is very easy in the sense that the dua, when you read verses in the Quran, anytime you come to a verse that you can convert it to dua, make it a dua. What you do, if you come, as I said so many times, if you come to a verse, talk about the believers. Well, what you do, you said, oh Allah, make me of them. Talk about the disbeliever. Oh Allah, do not make me of them. Talk about the hell. Oh Allah, get me far, far away from the hell. About heaven. Oh Allah, talk about the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, make me of those companions of the Firdaus al-A'la. Use it and the Prophet ﷺ said, الدعاء هو العبادة. الدعاء هو العبادة. The worship is a dua, is an act of worship, because when you think about it, when you ask Allah for something, why are you asking Allah for something? Because you know that He is capable and powerful to deliver it. You don't ask a weak person for something. You ask for the greatest entity for something. And that's how the dua is. That means you believe in Allah. That's why you ask Him, in this regard. And the dua and the absence of dua is kufr. Because Allah subhanahu say, "Id'uni astajib lakum," ask me, then I will responded to you, and then Allah after this, إن الذين يستكبرون عن إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي, in those who do not dua, they are arrogant about my worship. You know, is it? Yeah, I know. It's. I'm looking at it here too. Surah anyway. Ayah of Surah Ghafir. So yeah, what's the ayah? إن الذين يستكبرون. I think the ayah. The ayah is there, but I didn't complete the ayah. So يدخلون جهنم داخلين. Okay, يستكبرون عن ادعوني استجب لكم ان الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي يدخلون جهنم داخلين. So they will enter hellfire, you know, in it. So in this regard, linking the dua to basically the people who are arrogant about do not do the dua. The other one also from a spiritual tadabbur, because we said, how do you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Spiritually, when Allah talk about, you know, the creation, ayat that has a creation, try to reflect on it a little bit. You are not going to act upon it. There is no, will Allah tell you, look at the heavens and the earth and so on. But this one will let you have this an awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Recognize who Allah, because the way you know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by his creations. So Allah direct you to look at his creation. And here is إن في خلق السماوات والأرض, in the creation of the heaven or there آيات لأولي الألباب. It is a sign, you know, it's basically, and the alteration of day and night and so on is a sign for those who understand it. Then talk هو الذي أنزل من السماء ماء. Look at this, the blessing of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He sent the water, He created the food, He created all of these things. You said you express your gratitude, do shukr to this blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have created for us. Particularly when they are available to you. There is so many people who live in the desert, they do not see any of these things. You are here, you go to the supermarket and get everything. It's a blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that you can access all of these fruits and vegetables and so on. So we take it for granted, but who brought it in? Who created them? It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is really the spiritual tadabbur. It's just to let you reflect, be gratitude to Allah, show gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, reflect in the creation and know the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and do it and to convert the things, you know, to a dua. The, the, the other one, which is intellectual tadabbur. And the intellectual tadabbur now requires slow reading, because now you are going to start deriving something now, you know, in it, to act upon it. So the intellectual tadabbur is is understanding the ayat so you can act upon it in this regard. A key part, a very important part for it, that intellectual tadabbur, you have to know the meaning of the words, of certain words in the Quran. We just said that if you, Allah is your teacher, if you have taqwa, then you have to know how you become a muttaqi. What would I need to do to be muttaqi so Allah becomes my teacher? And He can guide me and explain to me all things that I'm searching for. So you have to look for the definition. And it cannot be definition by anybody. It should be a definition in the Quran. Because keywords in any discipline are defined by the authors of the discipline. Because the same word can be used in multiple disciplines different ways. So you have to always look who is the authority and they do it. So I give you here some example. If I tell you cell, C-E-L-L, what does it come? Every one of us, depends on his discipline, will think of it different ways. If you are in the police, you directly think of cell as a cell in the jail. You know, if you are a biologist, you will think a cell is a biologically living organism. If you are working with spreadsheets, you said a cell is part of the spreadsheet. If you are an electrical engineer or electrician, a cell is what? Is a battery. So it's the same word, but used different. Who define it? It depends on the discipline in it. Another one, you know, number term, just just to know that it's so important to do it. Derivative. What's a derivative? You know, it depends who you are to. In mathematics, a derivative is basically it's what a function it change. You know, And then, but if you are in finance, a derivatives is a certain, assets. So, brother Anwar, what's a derivative in finance? You remember you hear this always from this financial program. You always have the derivative and so on, and they sell the derivatives. But if you are a linguist, a derivative is a word from a word, and so on. And you look in chemistry, what's a derivative of a compound from a compound? So my point is the emphasis that everything has a different, the term can be used in multiple ways. And the first part, because a lot of people use the word in the Quran and you go to the lexicon, the Arabic dictionary. Well, first of all, see if the Quran defined it. If the Quran defined it, that should be your primary one. That doesn't mean you negate the other one is wrong, but it might have a different, you can use it in a different conditions, but necessarily at least you look at the definition of the Quran first. So I put here some terms which we'll discuss inshallah when we come again to continue with this. And these are so important. And you probably heard me talk about some of them, but at least since I have this collected in all one document, then it's probably easier. Awliya Allah. Every one of us want to be a wali from awliya Allah. Then how do you be a wali from awliya Allah? We just talk about muttaqeen. We said if you are a muttaqi, if you have taqwa, Allah will be your teacher. You don't need to go to university, go to university of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But what is a taqwa? How you define it? Now, how about mu'min? We all say you are a mu'min. If I tell me, define to me what is the iman, I guarantee you, you are not going to define it from the Quran. We said, remember when we said the most important is start with the Quran first. Go to the hadith, go to the opinion of the scholar. Don't go to the second one or the third one before you go to the first one. Because if you go to the other ones before, it actually changes your understanding of the first one. If you read the book of tafsir, before you read the ayat yourself and reflect on it, all what you understood is what the other person understood. You deprived yourself from the opportunity, at least exercise your ability and go back and validate. You might find your opinion is actually better and more convincing than the other one. Look at how Allah first defined it. So, how about Ibadur Rahman? To be a righteous slave of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Rahman. How about Rahman himself? Who's the Rahman? You know, how about when Allah hidayah, yahdi Allahu man yasha wa yudillu man yasha. Allah guide whom He wills and misguides whom He will. What does Allah pick you and guide you and pick another person and misguide him? There must be a definition. What is a guidance Allah speaks about and what's a misguidance that Allah speaks about in the Quran? But if you just translate it the way it is, you get confused because you said, how can Allah subhanahu misguide people and then punish them? So you have to know the definition. What is the guidance? What is dhan? Which, assumption. Because if you look in the Quran, talk about the people who are believer, يَظُنُّونَ أَنَّهُمْ مُلَاقُ رَبِّهِمْ. They have assumed that they will meet their Lord. How can you become a believer and make this is an assumption or this is a firm belief? So how can it be? And the word shak, which is doubt, the word ilm. When you said Allah, test people so He would know who believe and who does not believe. Well, Allah knows if I believe or don't believe. Why you have to test me? Then what is the word ilm means? What ya'lam means in this regard? To avoid this misinterpretation of it. And then I told you before, because we follow the Prophet Ibrahim Hanifan. What does Hanif means? Why we have to follow Prophet Ibrahim? And the Prophet ﷺ, Allah commanded the Prophet ﷺ to take the Prophet to use Sayyidina Ibrahim as a role model for him. And we take the Prophet, but we also take Prophet Ibrahim. And the focus on it in Hanif. What does this Hanif means? So these are the terms, inshallah, next time we can pick one by one and go through them. Because if you understand these terms, frankly, first of all, you know what you need to do. And the second one, it will explain the tree that I keep showing you. Another one, as I said, here is the method for establishing definition of term, expert in the field, inference from broad usage of the term in the Quran. and in inference from, how the term was used. And then I said, and I said, because I talked to you about this before, the Quran is teaching of the Quran is spiral or circular. That means if I want to look the definition for the muttaqin, I cannot pick the first definition only. I have to look to the other parts, verses in the Quran that define it and assemble them together, and that will give me the complete definition. If the Quran was linear, teaching a linear approach, then we'll give you the whole definition in one and then go to the other and so on. But the Quran doesn't use this way. Every surah in the Quran taught about everything and they expand on it in another one. So to get the complete idea about the concept, you have to look to all of the other surahs that refer to that concept in this regard. Okay. And I said, the end of the day, you will know what is this tree all about. So, اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه. اللهم اهدنا فيمن هديت وعافنا فيمن عافيت وتولنا فيمن توليت وبارك اللهم لنا فيما أعطيت. اللهم ادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. اللهم اخرجنا من ظلمات الجهل والوهم إلى نور العلم. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما. اللهم اجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون أحسنه. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك وبطاعتك عن معصيتك وفضلك عن من سواك. اللهم فضلك ورحمتك على كلمة الحق والدين. اللهم انصر الإسلام وعز المسلمين يا أكرم الأكرمين. ربنا أوزعنا أن نشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علينا وعلى والدينا وأن نعمل صالحا ترضاه. اللهم اصلح لنا في ذرياتنا إنا تبنا إليك وإننا من المسلمين. Oh Allah, spread your mercy upon us, shower us with your blessings, increase our knowledge, grant us forgiveness, and reward us with the company of the prophets in the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, forgive our parents and all our friends and relatives who have passed away. Oh Allah, make their graves a garden from heaven and grant them the Firdaus al-A'la. Oh Allah, we have many of our friends and relatives who are sick. Oh Allah, we have our son Ma'raj, our daughter Aisha Wani, our grandson Is. Oh Allah, grant all of them full and speedy recovery. Oh Allah, guide our children, protect them and make them righteous. Oh Allah, we have many of our brethren in Palestine and many parts of the world who are facing barbaric enemies, unjust world, and complacent Muslim nation. Oh Allah, heal their trauma, protect their helpless, grant them lasting peace and prosperity, and fulfill their need. Oh Allah, we ask with every name you have elected for yourself, that none of us leave this gathering, but his pains have been relieved, his worries have been removed, his debts have been paid, his weaknesses have been concealed, his sins have been forgiven, and his needs have been fulfilled. Subhanallah wa bihamdih, adada khalqih, ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. والعصر إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير المرسلين. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم، والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.